Night. Another sleepless night for Ann. The faint blue light from his phone screen casts a pale glow on his gaunt face, outlining deep, weary shadows. Outside, the city is peacefully asleep, but inside his cramped room, Ann's mind is a storm. Numbers dance wildly before his eyes: overdue rent, urgent loan calls, credit card bills blazing red like a verdict. The pressure of debt, like an invisible serpent, tightens around his chest, choking every breath. Ann's job, a low-level office clerk, has become a meaningless grind. Every day, he buries himself in soulless spreadsheets, endless meetings, yet his meager salary cannot keep pace with the skyrocketing cost of living. He watches peers flaunt new cars, houses, lavish vacations on social media, and a bitter, simmering sense of inferiority burns inside him. Modern society, with relentless consumerism pumped through flashy ads, has implanted a rigid belief: a man's worth is measured by the wealth he owns. By that measure, Ann feels like a worthless zero. Despair, the only word to describe Ann's state now. He has tried everything: overtime, cutting expenses, even dabbling in risky investments that brought bitter losses. Now he feels perched on the edge of an abyss, beneath which looms the dense darkness of failure. In a panic of sleepless nights, Ann mindlessly scrolls his phone. His fingers swipe through pointless entertainment videos and complaints until they pause on a short TikTok clip. Its title strikes his eyes like a spark in the dark: Secret to Fast Money Attraction, Powerful Mantra of the Wealth God. The video shows a golden deity, portly and dignified, holding a mouse that scatters jewels. The voice asserts that sincerely reciting a single mantra will unblock all financial deadlocks and fortune will flow naturally. A short, catchy mantra rings out: Om Jambala Jalendrai Svaha. Ann, who never believed in mysticism, suddenly feels a flicker of hope. He does not understand the mantra's meaning. He has no deep spiritual faith. His mind harbors only a raw, selfish desire to escape poverty. He clings to the mantra like a drowning man grabbing a last lifebuoy. He chants it repeatedly through the night, hundreds of times, with the urgency of one cornered. The mantra becomes his sole prayer in the dark. This marks the beginning of a journey and could never have imagined. A journey not only to seek material wealth, but to discover a far greater treasure hidden deep within consciousness. A heavy question hangs in the silent air of his room: can a mantra really turn stones into gold? And if so, what price must be paid for that wealth? Does it demand a cost even greater than the debts he bears? Journey to the East in search of true gold. Chapter 1: Meeting the Dharma Protector, the Origin of Prosperity. In the early days, Ann recited the mantra mechanically. He repeated it while riding his motorbike, sitting in front of the computer screen, lying on his bed before restless sleep. No money fell from the sky, no lottery jackpot won. Impatience began to erode his fragile hope. Was this just another online scam? Then another thought arose. If he was to pray, at least he should know whom he was praying to. This was no longer a search for a magic formula, but the start of an exploration. And searched online, typing keywords like wealth god, Jambala, Om Jambala Jalendraya Svaha. What he found completely changed his perspective. The deity he was praying to was not an ordinary wealth god who distributes riches arbitrarily based on prayers or offerings. This god has a grander title: the Yellow Treasury King, the chief of the 5 wealth gods in Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism, governing wealth in the north. But what shocked Ann most was the deity's profound origin. The wealth god, or Zambala, is not just a god. He is an emanation of Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha of boundless compassion, or of Ratnasambhava Buddha, one of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. His ultimate purpose is not to bestow riches for selfish enjoyment, but to rescue beings from the extreme suffering of poverty, providing them material and spiritual conditions to peacefully practice the Dharma and seek liberation. The transformation of role from a worldly god to a bodhisattva bears deep meaning. In early beliefs, wealth gods like Kubera in Hinduism mainly managed material treasures and power. When assimilated and transformed in Vajrayana Buddhism, their role was elevated. They ceased to be gods who could be dealt with via offerings for wealth. Instead, they became bodhisattvas with the great vow to save beings. Wealth, no longer an end in itself, became a means for a higher purpose: spiritual cultivation. This reflects a maturation in understanding wealth, from mere possession and personal status measure to a resource to serve and advance the path of awakening. The prosperity given by the yellow wealth god is not selfish indulgence, but sufficiency to practice generosity and giving, and found a legend repeated on websites and Buddhist YouTube channels. The story tells that long ago, while Shakyamuni Buddha was preaching the great Prajnaparamita Sutra atop Vulture Peak, jealous demons and evil forces attempted to disrupt by shaking and toppling the mountain. At this critical moment, the yellow wealth god and other Jambalas courageously manifested, shielding the Buddha and the Sangha, ensuring the uninterrupted flow of the Dharma. Grateful for this selfless protection, the Buddha entrusted him with a great mission: to become a mighty Dharma protector, safeguarding the Dharma and helping beings overcome poverty, enabling their practice. The wealth god's vow before the Buddha was not to give money to whoever prays, but to protect practitioners from lack, so they face no obstacles on the path to awakening. And began examining the deity's image he initially glanced at on his phone. Every detail now held new meaning. His body shone golden like pure gold, symbolizing prosperity and growth. His big round belly was not only fullness but generosity, embracing boundlessness. His right hand held a citron fruit, known for healing and purification, symbolizing the fulfillment of all rightful wishes. But the most intriguing was his left hand, gently holding a mongoose continuously spitting jewels and precious gems. In ancient Indian symbolism, the mongoose is the natural enemy of snakes, and snakes in Buddhism often symbolize greed, hatred, and delusion. Thus, the image of the mongoose conquering and controlling the snake while distributing wealth conveys a profound message. True prosperity only comes when one has mastered greed. Wealth flows not from greedy accumulation, but from conquering greed itself. A fresh, powerful realization struck On. He had approached wrongly from the start. He prayed to a bodhisattva of compassion with a heart full of greed and selfishness. He tried to trade with a Dharma protector whose vow is to help beings overcome precisely that greed. Shame crept in. He realized perhaps the problem was not whether the mantra works, but the mindset of the reciter. His journey had only begun, and the first door he stepped through did not lead to material treasure, but to the truth about the bodhisattva he was invoking. Chapter 2: When Sound Transforms the Brain, the Mechanism of the Mantra. This new understanding of the yellow wealth god led An to change his approach. Instead of mindlessly mumbling the mantra with a mind crowded by debts, he began a more serious practice. Each morning, he set aside fixed time, sat quietly, and tried chanting with some reverence, some curiosity about how these mystical sounds worked. He no longer sought instant results, but cared about the process itself. This led to another fascinating discovery, an unexpected intersection between ancient spirituality and modern science, and learned that mantra is not a random word. It derives from Sanskrit, combining manas, meaning mind, and tra, meaning tool or instrument. Thus, mantra literally means tool of the mind. It is not a plea sent to an external power, but a tool designed to influence, regulate, and transform the practitioner's own consciousness. Vajrayana scriptures emphasize that in mantra recitation, the practitioner must unify body, speech, and mind. The body should relax. The mouth articulates the mantra clearly and evenly. Most importantly, the mind must focus, not wander in idle thoughts, but direct toward the light of the Buddhas and the object of recitation. This is a method of concentration, a meditation technique using sound as the object. What amazed An was how closely these principles align with modern neuroscience findings. He read articles and watched videos explaining chanting's effects on the brain. These repeated sounds are not empty words. First, they influence brain waves. EEG studies show that chanting or listening to repetitive sounds can alter brainwave frequencies. Our brains under stress or anxiety operate mainly in beta waves. Chanting helps shift brainwaves to alpha, 8 to 12 hertz, a relaxed, calm state, and theta, 4 to 8 hertz, a state of deep meditation, creativity, and subconscious connection. This synchronization creates inner peace and clarity, reducing the chaos of negative thoughts. Second, chanting, especially vibrations like Om, the initial syllable of many mantras, including the wealth gods, physically impacts the body. These vibrations spread from chest to throat and mouth, stimulating the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is part of the parasympathetic nervous system, responsible for rest-digest responses, opposing the fight or flight system activated under stress. Stimulating the vagus nerve slows heart rate and breathing, inducing deep relaxation. Third, and perhaps most crucial for Anne's situation, chanting soothes the amygdala, the brain's center for fear, anxiety, and strong emotional responses. Facing financial pressure triggers the amygdala, causing panic and clouded thinking. fMRI brain imaging shows chanting and meditation reduce amygdala activity, helping one stay calm under stress. A deeper insight formed in Anne. The mantra is not an external miracle, but a method to reprogram the mind from within. At first, he thought the mantra was a command sent to the universe to order money to flow to him. Now, he understood its mechanism is more subtle and scientific. Regular chanting soothes toxic mind states tied to lack, chronic anxiety, fear of the future, stress from debts. It does not directly change his bank balance, but alters the chemistry inside his brain. When the mind becomes peaceful, clear, and free from amygdala's grip, he can see his problems more objectively, make wiser financial decisions, and recognize opportunities previously obscured by fear. The mantra does not mystically change the outside world, but transforms the practitioner's inner world. And this inner transformation is fertile ground where seeds of prosperity can sprout. And continued daily chanting. But now his purpose had changed. He no longer chanted to demand money. He chanted to reclaim peace for his soul. Though financial problems remained, panic vanished. Instead came stillness, a capacity to observe issues without being overwhelmed. He began sleeping better, concentrated more at work, realized that before managing money, he must manage his own mind. The mantra had not brought treasure, but it had given him the key to unlock that treasure, a peaceful mind. Chapter 3. Sow a coin, reap a field, the karma law of wealth. Inner peace is a precious gift but cannot pay bills. After weeks of chanting with renewed mindset, Anne's mind was clearer, but his material situation barely changed. The initial calm began to falter under harsh debt reminders. He realized sitting still and chanting was not enough. Something was missing in his understanding. With persistence nurtured by concentration practice, Anne decided to explore deeper. He no longer sought quick fixes on TikTok, but turned to reputable sources. He began watching long, detailed Dharma talks on major Buddhist YouTube channels, followed by hundreds of thousands and endorsed by realized masters. After hours of listening, a core message, repeated in many forms, deeply penetrated Anne's mind. Wealth and abundance are the fruits of wholesome karma, and the primary cause to create that fruit is the practice of generosity, dana. This is not an abstract theory, but a natural law governing the universe, the law of cause and effect, karma. The most important lesson he learned is that karma, is not merely physical action. The essence of karma lies in volition, that is, the intention behind every act, word, and thought. The Buddha taught, "Monks, I say that volition is karma. Because of volition, beings create karma through body, speech, and mind. Even a small act of giving, if done with a pure intention, with a joyful and regretless heart at all three times, before giving, during giving, and after giving, creates immeasurable merit. Conversely, a grand offering made with craving, calculation, or regret will have diminished merit." To clarify this law, teachings often recount vivid classical stories. Anne was particularly impressed by the story of Anathapindika, the wealthy merchant. What made him immortal in the scriptures was not his wealth, but his boundless generosity. Hearing the name Buddha alone filled him with immeasurable joy. With pure faith, he did not hesitate to cover the entire courtyard of Prince Jedah's park with gold, just to purchase the land he deemed most worthy to build a monastery to offer to the Buddha and the Sangha. His act was not an investment seeking more wealth, but a manifestation of a heart utterly conquered by the Dharma. This selfless, uncalculating mind created immense merit, making him the foremost great benefactor, a symbol of wealth combined with generosity. In contrast, the story of Kosya, the miserly rich man, served as a warning. Despite his vast wealth, his spirit was so impoverished that he and his wife secretly baked cakes in a high room to avoid sharing. The venerable Moggallana, using supernatural powers and wisdom, cleverly created a situation where the cakes, made from a small amount of flour, kept expanding, and the basket of cakes stuck together, impossible to separate. This miracle broke down the wall of greed in Kosya's mind, compelling him to relinquish attachment and perform his first offering. Though initially reluctant, this act opened the path to transformation, leading him and his wife to hear the Dharma and attain fruition, and also heard stories from the Vimanavatthu, stories of the heavenly mansions, and Pedavathu, stories of the hungry ghosts. Vimanavatthu recounts how devas, heavenly beings, were reborn in splendid heavenly palaces, and when asked about their causes, they all described small but sincere acts of giving during their human lives: a bowl of porridge, a flower, a bridge built. Conversely, Pedavathu tells tragic tales of hungry ghosts, beings suffering endless hunger with huge bellies but throats as narrow as needles, unable to swallow food. The cause of such terrible retribution is a miserly, stingy heart that refused generosity while alive. A new light shone in An's mind. He realized a profound truth. Generosity is not a form of spiritual investment. People often think I give 1 coin to receive 10 later. But in Buddhism, generosity is not a transaction. It is a spiritual practice, a method of transforming consciousness. When someone gives something, especially something dear or needed, it is a direct confrontation with the ego, with attachment and stinginess. Each act of giving is a practice of letting go, a breaking of the scarcity mindset, the fear of not having enough. Material wealth that follows is not a profit paid with interest, but a natural result, the inevitable fruit of a mind transformed from holding back for myself to sharing with others. Merit is not only money, but inner peace, the joy of doing good, and the good karmic connections with kind people that naturally arise, all born from an expanded heart. And smiled to himself. He had been going against the universe's process. He wanted to reap without sowing, to enjoy the fruit without nurturing the tree. He had found the missing link. That very day, on the way home from work, he saw an old woman selling lottery tickets, shivering in the rainy afternoon. Instead of passing by as usual, he stopped, bought a few tickets despite knowing he had no luck, and slipped some small bills into her hand. He said, "Keep this and have a warm cup of coffee." The old woman looked up, her aged eyes sparkling with unexpected joy. As Ann turned away, a warm, strange joy rose in his heart, a pure happiness he had never felt from salary or bonuses. He knew he had just planted the first seed in his own field. Chapter 4, The Golden Thread Between Greed and Aspiration, the Path of Right Livelihood. When he began practicing small acts of generosity, he faced a subtle inner struggle. Part of him felt serene joy in giving, but another part, a familiar whisper of ego, questioned, "I've given, so why hasn't my luck come? When will I be rewarded?" He realized that even in good deeds, his craving lurked, turning giving into a conditional exchange. This pushed him to a deeper question. Where is the thin line between a genuine aspiration to improve life and blind, selfish greed? He returned to the Buddhist teachings and learned to distinguish 2 very different mental states: tanha, craving, and chanda, desire. Tanha in Pali refers not simply to desire, but to intense craving, an insatiable thirst. It belongs to the 3 poisons, greed, hatred, delusion, and is seen as the direct source of all suffering. Craving is tied to attachment, selfishness, and never knowing enough. It is like drinking salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. Conversely, chanda is simple wish or intention. It is neither good nor bad by itself. It becomes unwholesome when it turns into kamachanda, selfish desire for the 5 senses, wealth, form, fame, food, sex. But it can be wholesome when it is dhammachanda, the noble aspiration to practice, do good, gain wisdom, and awaken. This noble desire motivated Prince Siddhartha to renounce the throne and seek liberation. So, how can a layperson grow wealth without being controlled by greed? The answer lies in right livelihood, sama ajiva, the ethical compass for all livelihood activities. Right livelihood is the 5th factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, leading to the cessation of suffering. It means earning a living by an honest, righteous profession that does not harm oneself, others, or any sentient beings. The Buddha clearly pointed out 5 types of business that lay Buddhists should avoid, as they cause suffering and generate bad karma. Trading in weapons, humans, including slaves and prostitution, animals for slaughter, intoxicants, alcohol, drugs, and poisons. This does not mean Buddhism opposes wealth. On the contrary, the Buddha encourages earning wealth righteously, as long as it is created by one's own effort, wisdom, and diligence without deceit, exploitation, or harm. A righteous earner benefits not only themselves and family, but also creates jobs, contributes to society, and gains conditions to practice generosity on a greater scale. And began applying these teachings to the modern business world. He thought of stock investment, a field full of temptations. From a Buddhist perspective, it is not entirely wrong. The issue lies in intention. Does one invest out of greed for quick riches, regardless of risks, or with responsible intent to provide for family and do good? The object of investment also matters. Does the company produce harmful products like weapons or tobacco? Do they harm the environment or exploit labor? Finally, does the investor realize market impermanence, avoiding mind swings by numbers and not succumbing to greed or fear? He also found practical financial advice in the Anguttara Nikaya. In the Vyagapaja N854 and Sigalovada DN31 suttas, the Buddha taught householders to wisely manage their wealth by dividing it into 4 parts: 1 for personal and family needs, 2 for reinvestment and business growth, and the 4th for savings to prepare for emergencies and for merit-making. This model is sustainable finance management, balancing enjoyment, career development, safety, and ethics. Another insight came to Anne: true wealth in Buddhism is not just bank numbers, but comprehensive prosperity is an ethical prosperity. Buddhism does not call for living in poverty, but points the way to abundance without sacrificing inner peace. A person may have great wealth, yet not be controlled by greed if they follow right livelihood, right view to see karma, and right thought to cultivate goodness. Their wealth becomes a blessing not only for themselves, but for the community. Conversely, one can have nothing but be burned daily by greed's fire. Non-greed does not mean no money, but a state of mind. The Noble Eightfold Path is a perfect toolkit to purify the mind, helping one walk steadily on the path to wealth while maintaining serenity and dignity. And re-examined his job in marketing, often criticized for stimulating unnecessary consumer desires. He wondered, is his work right livelihood? He realized instead of pushing sales at any cost, he could focus on honest communication about a product's real value, helping customers make wise choices rather than inflating or deceiving. He could choose to work for companies whose products truly benefit society. The path remains open, but now he has an ethical compass to guide him. Chapter 5: The Trap of False Enlightenment, Overcoming Spiritual Materialism. As in practiced generosity more voluntarily and applied right livelihood, a sense of peace and freedom began to arise. He no longer obsessed over numbers or compared himself to others. His life felt more meaningful. But along with that peace, a subtler trap started to emerge. A proud voice whispered in his mind, "Look, I'm different now. I practice, I give. I'm nobler than those worldly people chasing money." He began to feel proud of his spiritual progress, feeling special. This was the moment Anne unwittingly stepped into a dangerous terrain, a trap many on the spiritual path fall into: spiritual materialism. This concept was widely popularized in the West by Tibetan master Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche in his classic book, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. According to Trungpa Rinpoche, this is a cunning tendency of the ego. When the ego can no longer cling to external material achievements, it tries to use spiritual tools and concepts to reinforce and rebuild itself. Instead of accumulating cars, houses, and fame, the ego now accumulates meditation experiences, mantra recitations, Buddhist knowledge, or feelings of superiority and enlightenment. It turns a path meant to dismantle the ego into a more sophisticated prison for the ego. And began recognizing these signs in himself. He had used the wealth god mantra as a tool to manifest wealth selfishly, treating it as a spiritual transaction. When he began giving, he sometimes felt self-righteous, thinking he was more moral than others. He wanted to share his transformation to seek recognition for his practice. He clung to the temporary peace chanting brought, seeing it as an achievement, a new spiritual asset. Now grasped an important truth: money mantras or any spiritual practice are double-edged swords. The very mantra he sought, if used with wrong mindset, can become a powerful tool of spiritual materialism. When one chants with selfish desire to enrich the ego, the mantra ceases to connect to the bodhisattva's compassion and instead becomes a tool to strengthen greed cloaked in spirituality. Its danger is greater than ordinary material greed because it is disguised as religious legitimacy, making the practitioner unaware of their error. Such a person can become arrogant, judgmental toward non-practitioners, and consider themselves special. The ego not only remains, but becomes subtler and harder to break. In recalled warnings he read about the wealth god mantra, tantric scriptures and teachers emphasize that for the mantra to manifest true power, the practitioner must develop the supreme bodhicitta, vow to save all beings from poverty, diligently practice generosity, and cultivate tolerance and compassion. These are not formal moral conditions, but the antidote to spiritual materialism. When the practitioner's heart turns to benefit others, and the wealth they seek is not for themselves alone, but to help beings, the ego finds no foothold. Then the mantra truly becomes a tool of the mind to develop compassion and wisdom, not a tool to accumulate and fortify the ego. A shiver ran down An's spine. He had nearly gone astray, almost turning a liberating practice into a new chain. He silently thanked this timely awareness. He let go of pride in the thought of being a practitioner. He returned to silent, simple practice. When chanting, he no longer thought of receiving for himself, but only visualized the compassion of the wealth god, wishing all beings to be free from lack. When giving, he no longer expected return, but focused on the joy of the receiver. His journey entered a new depth, a transformation not only of action, but of the deepest motive in his heart. The greatest treasure months, then a year passed. An's life truly changed, but not in the way he once imagined on that desperate night. No miracle happened. No huge sum fell from the sky. Change came slowly, organically, and sustainably. As An's mind grew peaceful and clear, he began to see mistakes in his financial management. He made a clear debt repayment plan, cut unnecessary expenses he once used to feel emptiness. At work, with sincere attitude and desire to bring real value, he earned customers' trust and recognition from superiors. New opportunities and better projects came to him. Gradually, debts were paid off. His income rose. He moved to a larger room. But most importantly, the biggest change happened inside, and realized the true treasure he found was not money in the bank, but a new state of mind, an abundance mindset. This is a deep belief that the universe always has sufficient resources and opportunities for all. It is a shift from fear of scarcity to trust in abundance. Happiness and wealth do not come from hoarding and guarding, but from giving and sharing generously. When he gives, he does not feel loss, but connection to the flow of plenty. The key to nurture this mindset is gratitude. Every day, and practice gratitude for what he has, no matter how small. A healthy body, a stable job, a delicious meal, a true friendship. Gratitude shifts the mind's focus from what he does not have to what he has. This change in perspective has remarkable power. It reduces financial anxiety and stress, helping him feel content and peaceful in the present, enabling wiser and more confident decisions for the future. An's journey, which began with a selfish prayer in the dark, became an adventure to discover the deepest laws of mind and universe. He drew invaluable lessons he believed could guide many lost souls in modern society. First, the Wealth God mantra is not a command to order the universe, but a song to harmonize one's soul with the energy of generosity and compassion. It is a scientific and spiritual tool to cleanse the mind of fear and anxiety, creating a stable inner foundation for prosperity to flourish. Second, true wealth is not the result of luck or tricks, but the sweet fruit of wholesome causes planted. Sowing seeds of generosity and sharing will harvest abundance. The law of karma is immutable. Do not expect to reap if you have never sown. Third, to grow wealth without being swallowed by greed, we need right livelihood as our compass and wisdom to distinguish wholesome aspiration from selfish craving. Buddhism does not forbid wealth, but shows the ethical way to enrich, benefiting oneself and others, a sustainable and peaceful prosperity. Fourth, in an era when spirituality can be commercialized, always beware the trap of spiritual materialism. Do not turn the spiritual path into a race to accumulate ego achievements. The purpose of practice is to let go, not to gain something, even enlightenment. Finally, start your journey with the smallest steps. Practice daily gratitude and perform selfless acts of giving. This is the surest and safest path to build comprehensive prosperity, wealth in material, richness in relationships, and most importantly, peace of mind. An was no longer the man of a year ago. He still worked, lived an ordinary life, but now he walked with a different mindset. He found his treasure, not at the end of a hunt, but right within the heart that learned to open. He often smiled and shared his journey with kindred spirits, always recommending the lighthouses of wisdom that guided him. An's journey is a living testament that the path to true wealth is not a shortcut lined with miracles, but a broad avenue of inner transformation, illuminated by wisdom and compassion. The treasure lies not far away, but in our ability to plant the seeds of goodness within each of us.